Wait a minute. This isn't DragonHeart. Hey everyone, welcome to Princess Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with my blind reaction to the movie DragonHeart. Which, let me check up on something real quick here. Because I got a little thrown off and confused. So just to be sure. Okay. So DragonHeart is based off of a story, but it's not based off of, like, from what I can see there, like an actual, like, full book. And here's where I got confused, because when I, like, chose to react to this today, I'm like, oh, wait, I have DragonHeart, don't I? And I went to go check, and it's like I brought this out. This is not DragonHeart. This is Aragon. Well, it's the first two books in the Aragon series, Aragon and Eldest. Fun fact, I have had this since high school and have never read this. I have never read these books, and I know there is an Aragon movie, which is, I think, where my confusion initially came from, because I know there's a movie for the first of these. I know it didn't do too well, but I know it exists, and I've also never seen that. So I've never read the books that I've owned since high school, which, by the way, I graduated in 2011, so this is old. But I've also, like, never watched the movie adaptation either. And so, like, going into this, it's like, I saw Dragonheart, I'm like, wait, is this is that, right? Nope, apparently not. So I don't know what I'm getting into. At least with Aragon, I knew, like, a tiny smidgen of it. I know it's, like, something about, like, this teen or something, kid, who, ends up getting involved with with dragons and stuff. I don't know what the exact details were even on that. But I know less about this. Dragonheart doesn't even tell me much of anything. But I do know it's a series of films. I did look that up after I realized that... When I realized this wasn't what I was thinking of, the books, I looked it up and I did find out... I did remember that it's a series of films. I should have remembered that because I was, requested to watch the series of films, but, I forgot about that when I chose this to react to. And again, to my knowledge, Aragon is only one film, so... Because it didn't do well. But yeah, I don't know what to expect, so... I guess I expect dragons? That's really all I have to go off of. I don't know if this is like, oh, modern kid gets, like, sees a dragon, or gets transported to medieval times and sees a dragon, or a fantasy world, or whatever else. I don't know. I don't know. But I'm definitely interested to find out and see and hopefully enjoy. Like I said, I really don't know what I'm getting into here, but hopefully it ends up being really good. So let's just give this a shot and find out. Hold up just a sec. Before you click that link down in the description below to get to today's video, I want to remind you of all the awesome content we have both on this channel and the Princess of Gaming channel. Let's check it out. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. You know what this movie feels like? Have you ever, like, seen those, like, kind of direct-to-video, direct-to-VHS specifically, that kind of era movies that were, like, you know this isn't a theatrical release. You can tell just by watching it. It wasn't a theatrical release. But for some reason, those movies just always had this like grip on you. This kind of investment. It's like they're not the most well made. They're not like super great in terms of all the acting, the direction, the effects. I'm trying to think of a specific movie like that, but it's like, you would go to like Blockbuster, Family Video, or whatnot back in the day, and you'd see this movie that was never in theaters, it was a direct to video thing, but you watched it out of like curiosity, and it ended up being something like really fun, or even if you like rented a VHS, it'd be one of the previews that were shown before the movie. One of the previews that it's like, oh, I've never heard of this, and it says, oh, like it's direct to video and everything. This feels like one of those movies, and I think these were big in like the 90s and early 2000s, so it kind of fits in regards to that. But yeah, this feels like one of those movies that, again, it's not super well made. It's got issues, but by God, is it memorable. Like, this movie is one of those movies that I just fully believe needs to be watched. Everyone will like talk about like all these big movies out there, The Wolf of Wall Street, Inception, some other movie that's not Leo DiCaprio. But you get the point. All these big movies out there that did super well, that are like seen as some of either the best of all time or just those kind of movies that you need to see. Everybody names those kind of films. For me, a lot of the films that would be on my list for that are films that are not always necessarily seen as bad, but sometimes can be, but are more of films that like very much feel like not just a product of the time, but a product of the people of that time. Something like School of Rock, or Good Burger, or Napoleon Dynamite. Like, these movies are, arguably not the best made. They have their issues here and there, in terms of how they're filmed, in terms of certain acting parts to them, etc., etc. But what makes them so memorable is that they just feel like they could only exist, not just in that time period that they were made, but could only exist being made by the exact people they were. The exact directors, the exact producers, the exact cast. No one else could do Napoleon Dynamite but John Heder. No one else could play Dewey Finn but Jack Black. And I know there's a Broadway one with oh my God, what is his name? Fizzarolli from Hell of a Boss. Beetlejuice. He's also Beetlejuice. Anyway, I know he's in the Broadway version, and I've seen like a couple clips of that, like on YouTube or whatnot. He's no Jack Black for that role. And I like him. I think he's fun, but he's not Jack Black. But the point is, these are properties that only can exist with this specific cast, in this specific time, with the specific crew, because it just feels like such a strong time capsule of all of that coming together. And even if it's not super well made, even if there's issues with it in those different parts, it is something that's going to stick with you, because it's like, it's something that's super memorable, super enjoyable, and something you can... This is the kind of epitome of a movie you can kind of turn your brain off to, in my opinion, and just enjoy. Because, yeah, if you think about a lot of this, you're going to find a lot of holes. You're going to find a lot to, like, complain about. But this is one of those movies that you don't want to overthink. This is one of those movies that you just enjoy for the sake of enjoying, and once you do, it's one hell of a ride. And I figured that out pretty quickly. it was very clear pretty quickly that this movie was going to have a little bit of that silliness to it, a little bit of that um, tone, I guess you could say. And so I decided to like just kind of enjoy it as it was instead of trying to like overanalyze certain lines or acting performances or whatnot. I still shared my thoughts, but you know, it very much reminds me of stuff like that. And I say that with like praise because it feels like a lost art form almost. You just don't see movies like that anymore. Outside of like maybe a super rare example once every couple years. And I genuinely believe that this movie just is so aggressively fun to watch. The hammy performances are wonderful. Dennis Quaid is great. David Thewlis is fun. I do wish there was more of Jason Isaacs in it. And Sean Connery is interesting. Obviously, his voice is very recognizable, very iconic. He wasn't a good person while alive, especially in terms of his raging sexism. But, you know, he definitely worked for this character, for Draco. Um, yeah, I really liked the different characters as well, their little quirks and eccentricities. How, let's be honest, they were mostly stereotypes, like every single one. And I'm fine with that. Um, but I also like kind of uh, the tone change that you have at points in this. Because there's certain points of this movie that are extremely serious. You see a lot of people being pretty violently killed. It gets extremely dark and touches on some very serious subjects. And then another moment, you'll see a dragon playing dead in a river, being super goofy and silly about it. It's this weird like combination of two entirely separate tones that makes you wonder who is this made for? Because I wouldn't show this movie to a child. God, no. A teenager, sure. I could show this to a teenager, but not a child. Anyone under the age of, honestly, 15 shouldn't see this movie. It's too mature and too intense. Kind of even a little scary. But I don't know if I would call this like an adult film. With all the goofiness and silliness, and it's the fact that it doesn't fully commit to blood and whatnot. It feels like it's trying to like skate between both both sides of that. Like it's trying to be family friendly enough to be able to get away with a lot of this shit. But it also wanted to tell a really dark, you know, medieval fantasy story at the same time. And that's just such a fascinating combination of tones. Because there's some parts that are really funny and stupidly funny. Like when Gilbert shoots the one knight in the ass and makes the joke about turning the other cheek, that is so fucking dumb. It is literally a butt joke. But it's really fucking funny too because it's like also a Christian joke. Because, you know, Jesus talking about turning the other cheek. It's really funny because it's stupid as fuck, but it fits the character because he's a monk. But it's also just dumb. It's just dumb. But then again, like you see people being impaled by giant fucking like ballista rounds, and it's just like Jesus fuck. Not to mention, like the big like climactic ending is Bowen has to violently kill this dragon that he befriended in order to take out this tyrannical king who, again, was Bowen's student, who Bowen actively cared for, tried to, steer in the right direction, and had such hope for. It's really fucked. But that's kind of the beauty of this. The fact that this movie does kind of play around with its tone like that kind of makes it really fun. And apparently, I did read into this after finishing the reaction there. Apparently, this did become a cult classic. And Draco is actually very well viewed as, like, a dragon in, media. That's pretty awesome, honestly. Like, to see that this movie, like, did gain a cult following, even though with critics, it's, like, just kind of very mixed. It's got a very mixed reaction by critics and all. And so it's like to see that so many people do look back on this fondly, even as like a cult classic type film. That's still really cool to see. Because that still shows that this movie speaks to people. And yes, I got a little teary at the end when Draco goes to the stars, because it was well set up, and it was kind of emotional. It didn't like make me full on like really cry, but I got teary. I got a little choked up, and I'm not afraid to admit that. Like, this movie endeared me to Draco. That's the point. Because it's like that's kind of one of the main themes of this. That you can't judge a book by its cover. I know it's like one of the most simplistic, one of the most overused themes out there in media, but that's kind of one of the biggest themes of this film, and I think it was well done. Because dragons are seen as like monsters, and yet they're well-spoken, really friendly, and actually do not hurt people unless they're attacked first. They're actually pretty wholesome. And Draco isn't just an absolute joy. But then you have like Bowen trying to believe that his student was corrupted by the dragon's heart, because he refuses to believe that he was always that evil. And he's judging him and assuming that he does have good in him still. And he, again, blames the dragons for it. So there's a lot of assumptions. There's just a lot of that in this. It also plays on the idea of hope quite a lot. Hope is hugely important to it, in terms of like finding hope for this kingdom again, and Bowen finding hope in the world again after being betrayed so heavily. This girl finding hope for her people even after her father is violently murdered by the king. It's really interesting, actually. I feel like there's a lot of movies like this that would like do things a lot differently, but I'm glad that they dedicated themselves to things. Because there's a lot of movies out there and a lot of directors and whatnot, writers, who, if they did this movie, they would make it so that the king was like originally a good kid and was corrupted or whatnot. But instead, this time, in this movie, it's just like, oh no, he just always was, he was just a terrible little shit when he was a kid, and he grew into an even worse shit. He's just bad. He doesn't have any kind of redemptive moment or any moment where he's like, where he and Bowen like kind of connect even a little bit again. No. That goodwill is just completely gone, and I kind of appreciate that. I've talked before how I love villains who are, nuanced and redeemable. I love when a villain has a lot of depth to them. But I also sometimes just like a villain who is evil, who doesn't need depth, who doesn't need nuance. And it's implied that he's the way he is because of his father. Because even though his mother was a good person, even though Bowen was a good person, it seems like he took most of his influence from his father. As a lot of boys growing up often will. There's this weird societal thing where boys just a lot of times gravitate towards their fathers because that's what a lot of media shows and everything. Same reason with a lot of women like gravitating towards their mothers, and sometimes it goes the opposite way. Sometimes you'll have a mama's boy or a daddy's girl. It absolutely happens, but a lot of the times it is gendered, and again, it's just how our society kind of treats a lot. Our society genders the weirdest fucking things, like seriously. So it's not that much of a surprise when we have fucking gendered deodorant. Why? And I'm not talking about like stuff that might have some kind of difference in how it's made. No, I'm talking about where the two deodorant sticks are exactly the same. One of them is just pink. And so it's for girls. What the fuck? It's dumb. But yeah, I really did enjoy this. Because I didn't expect much out of it. And here's the thing, even like viewing it just as a film, it's like it's not the worst film I've ever seen or anything. It's not like on the level of Minions or the Minecraft movie or anything like that. It's not The Sitter. It's just it's a fairly good movie. Like, I'd say if you just want to base it based on like how much I would rate it in terms of its general quality, 6.5, maybe 6.5, 7 out of 10 at best. I wouldn't put it anywhere above that, but I wouldn't put it like that any lower. I definitely wouldn't put it lower than a 5. But again, that's kind of the joy of this movie. It's not supposed to be taken seriously. It's not supposed to be overthought. It's just supposed to be something you're supposed to sit back and just have fun with. And that does raise my thoughts on it a bit. That does raise my rating for it a bit. I don't know exactly how much. It's definitely something I have to think about, but I definitely enjoy it a lot more than I would if I were just thinking about it from a movie perspective, from a quality perspective, which I don't tend to do most of the time anyway, to be fair. I'm not like a lot of the critics out there who will overanalyze everything because it has to be like perfect in terms of every little detail. I tend to, when I watch a movie, I tend to think about enjoyment first above everything else, and then just see how everything else kind of meshes into that. It's like, am I enjoying this? Okay, why am I enjoying this? That I figure that out after. It's like, oh, this is well directed. Oh, these actors are doing a great job at these performances. But I kind of want to determine if I'm enjoying it first because I want to let that lead the way. And I think that's perfectly reasonable. I think it's better than trying to like judge a movie based on like some ridiculously over the top issues that you find with it. And don't get me wrong, there are plenty of movies that I find issues with too, but again, judge it based on entertainment first. And then go from there and figure out like why you're entertained or why you're not entertained. But yeah, DragonHeart was very entertaining. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. It got emotional. It was very investing. If I were to say, like, out of the main cast, I would say that the best was probably David Thewlis as the king. He just hammed up every bit of that role in the perfect way. I've always really liked David Thewlis as an actor, though, so it's not a huge surprise. Everything I see him in, it's like he's great with. So, male person. So I'm not surprised, and he's been hammy before. So, if I had to say a least favorite performance, like in terms of the major characters, outside of the Lord, the guy, oh my God, what's his name? It begins with an F, right? Jason Isaacs' character. Outside of him, who I just don't feel like had enough screen time to really make a difference, and it felt like a little bit of an injustice to how good of an actor Jason Isaacs is. Outside of that, in terms of the main characters we did get screen time for, the girl didn't impress me. Let me look up the names. I'm sorry. Yeah, I still have the page up here. Cast Kara. I should remember Kara. I should remember that because of Detroit Become Human. My favorite video game of all time. There's a character named Kara. It should be easy to remember just because of that. But yeah, Kara was Dina Meyer. What else are you known for? Okay, apparently she was a recurring role in Beverly Hills 90210. Oh, and she starred with Keanu Reeves and Johnny Mnemonic. I've never seen that one. What else is she known for? Oh, she was in the Birds of Prey series as Batgirl back in the early 2000s. She was in the Saw series as Allison Carey. She seems to be in most of them. Wow. Okay. Interesting. Huh. Oh, this was only her second film role, too, after Johnny Mnemonic. So maybe that's what it was. Maybe she just hadn't, like, really gotten into her, hadn't really gotten into the groove of her acting yet by that point. Because she just really did feel, like, off to me. And it's not that she was bad, it's just that she wasn't much of anything. She felt like very much barely there. Oh, she was in an episode of Monk. Oh, that's fun. And I just don't feel like she, like, kind of worked as well with everyone else. Oh, she also played Barbara Gordon / Oracle in the Flash series. That's fun. Specifically in the Crisis on Infinite Earths. So that was definitely a callback to her role as Batgirl in Birds of Prey. Okay. But yeah, I feel like she just didn't quite do it for me. Um, Dennis Quaid was great. I had no issue with him. Where is it? Where is he? Trying to remember his name. Peter Postlethwaite? I'm not 100% sure how you pronounce his name. But yeah, he was pretty good. But that's pretty much how I'd rate his performances and everything I've seen him in. Pretty good. He never really, like, really stands out to me. But he's always a character you do remember. So, there's that. Yeah, I mean, overall, I'm pretty pleased with this movie. I really enjoyed it. The effects, by the way, I don't think I touched on that much yet. For the 90s and everything, I think were fairly good. I mean, like, yeah, looking at it nowadays, it's like, oh, that's a little eh. Uh, but it's like, yeah, we're in 2025. Like, this is like, oh, like, what? 2.5 decades since this came out? Or what was the exact year this came out? God damn it. I have to look up everything here. 96. So yeah, about 3 decades. Wow. It'll be 3 decades next year. So yeah, it's like nearly 3 decades after it came out. It's like, of course it's going to look off. That just makes sense. But for the 90s, like I've seen other 90s CG, and this is pretty good comparatively. Um, so yeah, I mean, I can't complain too much. But all of that being said, tell me in the comments below, what did you think of DragonHeart? I'm just very curious to see where this is going to go. Because there's apparently like a few more movies in this franchise. There's an entire series of films for this. So how, if he was the last dragon? Unless maybe he wasn't and he just didn't realize. I don't know. I guess maybe we'll see. But in the meantime, like I said, tell me your thoughts. No spoilers for any future movies. And for now, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.